Aqala usela ndina 9. Ngabona izinto bezitratweni. Ngabona abantu abahlabana, abekhunyiwe bebetha abanye abantu.
Ngiyabona ukuthi abantwana bafuna uncedo. Ukuthi no, fanele ndenze something.
Listen, boys. We are going to see them, and we are going to play a Kosiaka. Are you ready, boys? Yes, sir. Let's go and do it, boys.
My stomach is moving.
I hereby declare the Valley Gov 2019 officially open.
There are 155 teams for kids under 13. And to win that competition, it's going to be so hard. Hey everyone, wipe your tears. We learn from this and we continue forward.
As a coach, I think it's a payback time to my community, to all the bad things that I did to them when I'm still growing up.
Siyababonisa siphethe ntoni eSouth Africa. Siphethe ntoni ematshotshombeni.
Bor och turister samlas runt fotbollsplanen och tittar på när Kusasa Stars.
Hey, last 16. Oh, well done, my boy. No, then I'm 70. Pare na idali soka, yenga kola pa.
This is the chance that you have. You're going to write your own book with this experience.
Oh man, yeah. Look, we're gonna have to go back and talk about that special project, Kusasa, and we will definitely be talking about it much more later. And but hey, it's 6 o'clock Monday evening. The Real Dialogue, all the way from the Eastern Cape, East London, and as I normally do, let me share with you why we have these dialogues. Of course, the Real Dialogue is part or is an initiative of the Real Village, and the dual purpose of these conversations, number one, is to capture the continent's change makers and celebrate the continent's change makers. We celebrate the people that make not just the world, and that is important, but specifically Africa a better place. And the reason we celebrate them, number one, is because of their contribution in making Africa a better place. Number two, we celebrate them also because of how we feel about ourselves as Africans when we look at them and the work that they do. And thirdly, we celebrate these continent change makers because of what they make us think is possible about Africa. And so this month of November, I have been sharing with all of us that that it's my last month on the 3rd floor. Very soon, next month in December, I'm going to be turning 40. I know it's too much. Yeah. But I'm going to be. So I've decided, as a way of saying bye-bye to the 30s, let me celebrate young change makers, excellent change makers. So we've had, last week we had Dr. Vuyani Mhlomi. Before then, we had Dr. Willie Chinyamurindi. And today we have got the incredible change maker that is very close to my heart, Shane Vermooten. And here he is. He's just joined me. Shane, good evening to you, my friend. How are you doing?
Hey, Stephen, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing great.
And hey, thanks, man. I mean, I know how busy you are, and that you've decided. Actually, here's the funny thing. I called your dad. I was like, "Hey, is Shane still using the same number?" He says, "Yes, he is." Because I want to invite. He says, "No, go ahead. If he's giving you problems, tell him that I have you've spoken to me already." I said, "No, I don't think he's going to do that." So, but hey, thank you, man, for joining us, and we're going to be talking about you, your impact, and what drives you, the work that you have done. But before we get to do anything, let me just say this. I celebrate you. I think you're an incredible young person. You are what it is possible about our world, about Africa, about South Africa. But hey, we're going to be talking about that much more later. How was your day? How was your day? Tell me. I mean, you did a couple of things, a couple of errands today. How did it go out? I mean, how did it go? How was your day today?
No, it's amazing. I mean, I'm actually just back in South Africa for this week. So
Sure.
anything that I have moved to the UK recently, so anything that I can do at, what's the time? 6 o'clock, and there's still sun.
Sure.
Is amazing. You know, if we were doing this last week, I would have not had so much light on my face. So it's just amazing to be having so much sun. But yeah, I had a fantastic day. Had some meetings, went visited some of our friends who live on the streets by where we used to stay in Sea Point. Went for lunch. So great day.
I was hoping that you're going to mention that, and because it just speaks of how an incredible human being that you are. But hey, we will touch all of those things. Welcome on The Real Dialogue. Once again, we are really, really honored to have you here, my friend. And in fact, I was reflecting, as I normally do, when I'm about to host a guest, as to how did I get to meet them. And I think I wrote about it on social media. The first time that I saw you, I was a speaker at the inaugural Justice Conference there in Cape Town. And the first time, I mean, I think you were, helping me with my mic and as I was about to speak. And of course, throughout the conference, we would say a couple of words, hey, how are you? And then, of course, the following year, I was once again invited by Craig. And then after my session, a tall guy comes to me. I said, hey, enjoy that. How are you? And when are you going back home? And then I tell him, I said, hey, before you go back home, please do come and say hi. Come for a visit at my house. And I'm happy to tell you that I did go. And your home is now one of my favorite places in Cape Town. In fact, I can even say, hey, Graham, I'm outside. Where's the key? And that's the kind of parents that you're having. Okay, we will touch on your parents, Graham and Di, and later on. But talk to me about your childhood. Where were you born? How was it like? What school did you go to? What kind of a pupil, a student were you? And sure.
I just want to grab my just grabbing my tea over here. It's on the ground.
Oh,
so.
Sure. I've got my water as well.
Before I touch on the childhood, I just want to say, I remember that meeting up at the Justice Conference was amazing. And I'm actually just doing a project now with Sipokazi. I also met at the Justice Conference, and Val's been involved with that from the Justice Conference, and we continue to do other projects with the trailer you just showed, and that's in partnership with the warehouse. So it seems it's amazing that, I think you always hold conferences and you go, well, what's the point? Like, why spend $1 grand or $2 million, whatever it is, on just hosting a conference? And now it's been amazing to start seeing, 2-3 years down the line from the first Justice Conference.
Sure.
I didn't more than that. No, 3 years down the line, from the first Justice Conference.
2017, the first one, I think. Yeah, it was 2017, the first one. Yeah.
Exactly. And now these kind of relationships are starting to pay off and things are starting to happen. So it's really it's exciting.
Sure.
There was amazing work that we did there.
Perhaps we should give kudos at this time to the warehouse team and the stewardship of Craig, of course. Yeah, but thanks about that, Shay.
No, definitely. Yeah, the most I have so much time for the warehouse team and for Craig. Anyway, they just do incredible work.
They do. Hey?
About it. I love anytime I get opportunity to work with them, I'll do it.
Incredible guys, absolutely incredible guys. Now let's go to your channel. This is not about the warehouse, not about Craig. This is about Shane.
Yes, my childhood. So I born and bred in Cape Town. Got obviously 2 parents and an older brother. What else can I say? I went to grew up in a my parents are YWAMers, so grew up within the YWAM sort of structures. We kind of grew up in the southern suburbs of Cape Town. I went to school here. Before I went to school, I remember my parents were still joining YWAM, so we went over to Hawaii, where they studied at the main kind of Youth with a Mission campus there. and unfortunately, you wish there was like moments in your life you're like, I wish I would have more clear memories of what happened back then. Because now I think I would, give an arm and a leg to spend a year in Hawaii, and now, my only memories of it are through photographs and stories. So yeah, I did that, and I think that was kind of a thread growing up throughout my childhood, was just being able to travel, to see the world, and in fact, so much so that by the time I finished school, I had been to close to 20 countries, I think. And so growing up in a family where that was important. I remember growing up and always having different people. And like you shared the story of my dad at the Justice Conference, just saying, "Oh, where are you staying? Come stay at my house." Like for most people, like that's strange. What an odd man. But for me, like that was just normal. Like, oh yeah, that's not even strange. It's just kind of what he does. So growing up, we always had constantly new people around our dining room table, and I'd always just want to sit there and listen to these incredible people and listen to the stories, and then even when I'd go to my room was like next door to a dining room, and I just like lie awake and listen and all time, So I think that's kind of an amazing thing for me growing up, was having all these incredible people around and just learning from their stories, getting to travel, and just kind of meant that I had a very different worldview to peers my age, and I think to a lot of people in my kind of societal class, race, language. So it was fun, but also on the other flip side meant that by the time I was going into high school, I was like, I hate school. Like I want to be finished. I felt like real life was going to begin once I'd finished school. Because I'd experienced already so much. And I was just like, man, when I finish school, I can do so much, and this is just getting in the way. I did finish. I wouldn't say the teachers all loved me. I was the kid in the back starting trouble. But all the teachers always loved me, because they always said, look, he's so naughty, but he's also polite. So like, if you catch me, so sorry. And I talk my way out of trouble. But I think that's kind of my childhood. And finished school in Cape Town too. So it's kind of this is my home.
So you have got both your dad and your mom's traits, and but I'm not gonna say, and but what do you think you've taken the most from your mom? And what do you think you've taken the most from your dad? I'm asking that because I happen to know the both of them, and I'm so privileged to call them friends. And so I can ask that question because I know them. And but what do you think you've taken the most from both of them?
Sure. So where'd you put me on the spot?
I know. This was not part of the questions.
No, I think I would say it's probably pretty easy. This side of my face is my mom, and then that side's my dad, and then. But I think definitely from a mom's side would be the kind of this creative, this kind of pursuit to tell a good story excellently. I definitely got that from my mom, and then obviously everything that comes along with that, all the skills and whatever. But at the heart of it is this idea of stories matter. And then all the practical skills that come along with that, and then I think from my dad is kind of more the like kind of I don't know if you'd say hard skills or soft skills, but like the sort of people skills, and kind of the the sort of more business side, because I've got a fascination with both worlds, in terms of wanting to tell stories and make movies, but then also having this major fascination with business, and have gone off at times and gone, cool, I'm going to kind of associate it with the film industry, but I'm going to go off and start a business which distributes films or does something, because that's another big fascination of mine. So I think currently where I'm at the moment is very lucky in that those two have kind of come together, allowing me to make content which matters, and then also being able to bring in sort of business skills in order to make that happen. Luckily, my wife, Bianca, her business skills are a lot better and stronger their mind and a financial skill. So she can take some of that load off my shoulders.
Sure. And of course, we're going to be touching. I mean, the reason that you guys are in the UK is primarily to support her on her academic endeavors. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, it's 100% why we're there.
Yeah.
She's studying an MBA at Said Business School in Oxford. So literally probably chose one of the most expensive places in the world.
Sure.
To go and study. But it's incredible. We've been there 2 months now. 2.5 months. And it's just amazing. So
she's enjoying it as well. I hope she's watching us. Hi, Bianca.
Yeah, hi, B, if you're watching. But yeah, no, I think she's loving it. So, and I'm loving it. It's such a, a kind of inspirational place to be. Obviously, in the UK and Empire has many issues. But just on the surface, walking around, everything's old, and the college, everything is just inspiring. So it's a great place to go to let the creative juices flow and be away from home. Still, we haven't been in that long, so getting dark early and kind of raining, still kind of romantic. I'm sure about like we hate this. Yeah.
So, but talk to me, Shane. When Bianca is in classes, what are you doing? Roaming around the streets?
Yeah, I was just roaming around, stealing people's bicycles, selling it on the side.
Sure.
So we have a company called Optical Films, and so we do other work through that. So this kind of first 2 months, we were finishing off another project, which I'm sure we'll speak about later. But it's called #We Are Dying Here, and we filmed that 5 days before we got an aeroplane to fly to the UK.
Sure.
So from that side of being editing, working with the editors, working with the sound guys to make sure that we could get the project finished in time. And this week we just finished it basically. So that's what I've been doing the first little while. And then got one project lined up before the end of the year, and then potentially coming back to South Africa start next year for another project. But I can also work that side. So we just, but a lot of work dried up because of COVID. So the industry's struggling everywhere. So I'm just playing it by ear for the time being.
Yeah. And then of course they've just gone back to lockdown as well in the UK. And how has that affected you guys?
Luckily I decided to come because we had to go. You have to go into lockdown in the UK. They don't do testing like South Africa, so it's just mandatory 2-week quarantine. So I was like, I don't want to come to South Africa and have to quarantine there. But when the lockdown is basically like, well, I have to do it anyways. So let me go to South Africa and have some meetings, finish this film, and then go back. And by the time I finish my 2 weeks quarantine, pretty much the next day they'll come out of lockdown. So I only experienced a couple of days of. But for South African, if you look at the UK lockdown, it's like lockdown light. So.
Really? Now, man, tell me now. Did you always know that you're gonna go this route? This side of creativity, filmmaking, directing, and if it was not this route, what do you think it would have been?
Yeah, someone had asked me this question the other day. What did you want to be growing up? And so I had to think about it long and hard. And I realized there's probably only one other thing I could now, if I think back, remember wanting to be, and I don't even know how long that lasted. And that was an architect. But very shortly I realized my drawings are horrible. I can barely draw a stick. And I failed maths at the end of school. I failed standard. We're still doing standard and higher grade.
I remember.
So I failed standard grade maths dismally, like 18% dismally. So I think luckily way back in the day, it was like, that's not for you. I'm glad I didn't try, but it would have been a time of pain. But I think probably if I think back about that, what attracted me to that was this idea of, much like a filmmaker and architect is looking at an open piece of land and saying, what could be here? What can this be? And they basically create something out of nothing. And I think that's probably now, I'd say I'm a filmmaker or whatever, but I think at the core of it is there's something in me that's, mesmerized and intrigued by creation and looking at something and going, well, there's nothing here, but I see this. And then the challenges that come with that, whereas an architect would use his pencil and draw it on sketch paper. I would use my words or pictures or references, or and ultimately you want to end up with a finished film or product. And that whole journey has just always fascinated me.
Sure.
So it was that maybe when I was 7 or 8, I remember playing in someone's garden and saying, I want to be an architect. And then I remember much more past that. And then I think just growing up the rest of the time, I just wanted to be in film.
Sure.
I don't know if you could say I chose it or it kind of chose me, because as you're speaking about, like my parents being part of YWAM, they run an organization called Media Village, which does the training side and then they also do production. And so growing up, I'd go on shoots all the time. I would hold sandbags or lights or probably in hindsight free labor, which is really clever. I'm like, should get kids and they work for free. But no, it was just amazing. That allowed me to see the world and allowed me to experience what it's like to be around production. And it's the only thing I ever wanted to do since then. Sure.
Also, Sure. And you've done that. I mean, I was looking at the kind of movies. Is it? Am I right if I say Another Side of Life would be your first one? Your first work? And I was trying to think, how old were you then? And looking in your filmography, I mean, Kids and Glory and Ocean Quest Express, Bypass. We're going to speak about Bypass and the impact that it had as well, and around the organ movement, Freedom Road, Another Side of Life. I've mentioned that, Adrift, and obviously these are all very close to you and are your babies. Are there ones that stand out for you and that are closer than the rest to your heart?
Yeah, I think I was chatting to someone the other day and they're asking, what are your favorite countries to travel to? And as I started listing them, then I was like, oh, those are the more recent countries I've been to.
Sure.
So I was my mom, I was like, but what about this experience? I was like, oh, that was very cool. What about this? Like, oh, yes, but they were further back. So the memories are just more fresh of the later countries you travel to. I think I'd say the same thing with, filmmaking. I suppose probably maybe Freedom Road, which is it's not the most recent one, but kind of going back to was one of the first shorts that I did that actually did pretty well, and was working with legitimate actors, and so I think that whole experience, remembering the nerves, and then Bypass was this just the stress of stepping on set for the first time, of having just this absolute idea of I'm an absolute imposter. People are going to find me out, and then having to deal with that kind of imposter syndrome, and hoping it doesn't come out in a negative sense. And then, I mean, we'll talk about Bypass, I suppose, just now, but so much lessons throughout Bypass. And then leading up, building on from Bypass, I suppose, the trailer you showed at the beginning, Kusasa, in terms of a documentary, I think that's kind of had the most, been closest to my heart. And also it's most recent. It's just been doing well in a bunch of festivals, and the impact that's been able to have. So it kind of just wasn't a project we were just able to walk away from. So we've been able to use to get under lockdown, we got 10,000 masks. We started a Kickstarter campaign, raised money for 10,000 masks for the whole community. We managed for 6 months to feed 36 families every month.
That's awesome.
And we're starting a fund to put some of the kids through school from the team. So that's kind of been an ongoing investment, which has been exciting. And then lastly is We Are Dying Here, which is the film that I came back to South Africa, which you just finished. Actually, on the screen behind me. I don't know. One, kind of subtle. But for me, in terms of a creative process, that was kind of, I think, the most fulfilling to date. Like being able to go, like, I pulled this from this project, I pulled this from Bypass, and I took this from Kusasa, and I can almost name what the things are that I took from each project. And having a vision, often you have a vision and then budget constraints, or you can't get the right person, or it just can't happen for many reasons. And this is one of those projects where someone asked me today, are you happy? And I was like, I'm extremely happy. What I saw is kind of what I see on the screen at the end, which is very rare. So yeah, but I could talk about my babies for a long time.
Understandably so. And I did mention to you how Kusasa really impacted me, how it really resonated with me. Being born in Kiwana and growing up in Kiwana, Soweto, in Port Elizabeth, a Shek community, there was just something about Kusasa that just resonated with me, and I saw myself in those boys, and yeah, it's an incredible work. And look, did you ever philosophically sit down and say, I'm not just going to make films, but I'm going to make films that change the world. I make films that amplify social justice. I'm going to make films that encourage love, equality, and justice. Did it just find you, or was that a deliberate decision on your part? Because that seems to be the thread in almost all your products.
I'd say yes, it was intentional. And then yes, also it's both. It also found me. I think as I started doing work and realizing that this is what I'm passionate about, and the stories that just came up kind of all seem to have that. And for a while I was like, no, that's not what I want to do, because it's difficult to frame the idea of wanting to do media and justice, because often when you tell people, oh, I'm a filmmaker, I do kind of impact films, is kind of how we term it. People think, oh yeah, that's cute. Like you do those videos for the UN, kids, cameras, and they go and film. And I'm not bashing those things because they're great transfer of skills, but the end product is like, oh, this is not. So having to find a way is, how do we give the right messaging across, that we make good stories well told. And that's kind of what we want to do. So our company, Optical Films, that's kind of its heart, is like, at the heart is everything there's a film and then there's an impact associated with that. And so as both as the company and then as individuals, as filmmakers, having worked on different projects, going, where's the impact attached? And then sometimes we do jobs because, they pay well. You're like, okay, cool. They pay well and it can allow me to do this. So yes, I think it's definitely, it's kind of the model that we look at would be participant media in the States. They did The Inconvenient Truth, and they've done Dark Waters. So they've won, I think, something like 16 Oscars, and all the Hollywood kind of A-listers want to work with them. But everything is impact driven. So we make a good movie that people want to watch, that has stars, it's well told, and then what is the spin-off in terms of how do we have impact? And what is our So it's kind of like movie making with an agenda. So that's, but hopefully a like sort of a positive,
definitely.
The agenda is change.
Definitely. And speaking about impact, Bypass had an extremely positive impact on donor organ donation. Apparently, raised it by 40%. Talk to me about that. How is that?
So what happened was we made this film, and it is on organ trafficking, basically. And when you kind of look at all the forms of human trafficking, they're all varied and vast and complicated. Very much dumbing it down now. We kind of looked at it and thought, okay, well, organ trafficking is one of the easier to solve, because people turn to the black market to get illegal organs when there's not enough legal donors, right? So if you have a legal organ, then you only need to turn to the black market. And in South Africa, depending on where you look or who you talk to, it could range from anything less than 3% to anything less than 1% of our population are organ donors. And so we realized, like, we can use this film to drive the awareness about people becoming organ donors. Although that's not what the film's about. The film is a thriller, keeps you on the edge of your seat. There are great tie-ins with that messaging. And so we created a website We did a kind of two-pronged approach to the marketing campaign. We created a website, and the website was called the New Day Clinic. And the New Day Clinic is a clinic that the characters go to in the film to get this illegal operation done. And we set up this website for this illegal clinic, and it was kind of supposed to be a bit inflammatory. So the first thing that happened when you came onto the website, there's a write-up and said, like, why should you suffer in poor health when the poor can be used to suffer for you? And people were shocked, so mad. And we're like, yes, I'm glad you're getting mad at that, but that's the reality.
Sure.
Money,
that's how it is.
They're not the ones selling their organs. They're not the ones being exploited. So we basically set up this website, set up a price list, and started handing out some flyers around Cape Town. I think we handed out about 1,000 flyers over 4 or 5 days, and it exploded. About 4 days later, every province in South Africa had seen it. Every state in America had viewed it. It had like 50,000 hits. And then all of a sudden, it was, there's newspaper like headlines on the side of the road. It was, illegal organs for sale on the streets of Cape Town. So it kind of got quite big. We had to get a lawyer and say, like, is this illegal? Because my dad said before, you should speak to a lawyer. I'm like, when that happened, I was like, I think we need to speak to a lawyer. So the lawyer was like, it's not illegal, but I would probably advise you to not do it. So we're like, yay, let's continue. But and then after that, we did a second campaign once that died down a little bit, where we took a shipping container, we removed the sides of the container, we put an operating theater in the back, and we drove around the city of Cape Town doing a heart transplant in the back of this truck, and around for 10 days, freaked people out. But basically, as a result of these marketing campaigns for the film, we partnered up with the Organ Donor Foundation and said, like, yeah, if it upsets you, good. Now, are you an organ donor? Sign up to become an organ donor. And as a result of that campaign, the week after we ran the campaign, we saw, the Organ Donor Foundation saw a 40% spike in people signing up to become organ donors.
That's incredible. That just speaks to the impact that your work does. Annelet, you have to ask something. We have such a low percentage of organ donation. What could be the reason? And from your experience in that project, do you want to comment on that?
I mean, I can briefly, and by no means an expert, but a little bit. That I think when we went about it, there's lots of kind of what we called low-hanging fruit that we can go after first, and I'll tell you what the low-hanging fruit was now. But the other part is that it is, kind of cultural traditions, religious traditions. So there's many things tied up in there. So we were very intentional not to go knocking and say, if you're, if you like of the Muslim faith, you should donate, because there's lots of conversations around there. Or if you don't believe in it, you should do it, because it's. We focused on the people who went, oh, organ donation, I can do that. And you go, yes, and you can sign up online, and it takes less than 1 minute. If you know your name, which I hope most people know, you shouldn't sign up to become an organ donor if you don't know your own name. Sure. But if you know your name and you know your ID book and you can click consent, you're now registered to say, I want to be an organ donor. It's that quick. So for us, that was the low-hanging fruit that we went after and said, let's just remind people and put in people's face, let's sign up to become organ donors. But there are so many varied reasons in South Africa. And luckily, through the film, it opened up a lot of conversation around, kind of religious practices across all religions and cultural practices. And things that I'm way out of my depth to speak into. But we're just like, let's start the conversation, and then hopefully those conversations can continue.
Sure. Valerie, another great soul, amazing impact, Shane, 40%. Maybe let's just take some time and reflect. She's great. Hi, Valerie. And Julia says, go Shane. And Beauty, Shane's work is amazing. And then of course there's a question there. I must ask, how old is Shane? You can almost understand why that question would be asked. I mean, looking at the kind of work that you have done within such a short space of time, then people would be forgiven to think that maybe you are hitting 45.
I know. I'm 31.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
no,
I know that
I hope I don't look like I'm hitting 45.
No, not at all, not at all. But your work says that you have been here for quite a while. And again, Anele Chafta says, appreciate the diverse guests that you invite. Thank you, Anele. These are incredible human beings. Now, tell me, before you started working for yourself, talk to me about your work journey, and we will transition from that now. And straight from school, where did you work? What did you do?
Yeah, so straight from school, I went to actually did a Youth of the Mission. I joined Youth of the Mission, did a course in discipleship training school in Colorado in the US.
Okay.
And basically, it was a snowboarders course. So every weekend we'd go snowboarding, and then during the week you'd have classes. So that was just this most amazing time. Then I came back and I studied at Media Village with my parents. Did a 3-month course in film and then 3-month course in photography.
Sure.
So that was my first year finished after school. And then I worked at Media Village for 2 years.
Sure.
And then after that, I just did my own dance and companies. And yeah, so that's kind of the journey. But I suppose one of the biggest things, which is kind of story, which I always point to in terms of, kind of kickstarted my career in terms of the work, my body of work, was we were leading up to the to the Soccer World Cup, which is 2010. I was working a lot in the human trafficking space, and there was this sort of idea. Well, not idea. I mean, statistically, it's true that there's going to be the spike in people being trafficked for sex and.
Sure.
All kinds of different kinds of human trafficking for the World Cup. And so we said, we wanted to do something. So while I was at Media Village, one guy came and said, we should do this commercial. And the commercial was for Yogi Sip, the yogurt drink.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Yogi Sip were running this competition that if you make an advert for them and you win 100,000 Rand. So we said, well, that's fantastic. If we win that, we can use that money to make, a kind of a public service announcement anti-human trafficking, and we can play in the stadiums and on buses and on television. So we entered this competition, but what we didn't realize was one of those competitions where you have to get your friends to vote. You write to them every 5 minutes, please vote, please vote. Yeah, one of those. So then we thought, no, our strategy would be the last week we just buy like 1,000 Yogi Sips, and then we win 100,000. Right off the 10,000 or whatever it was for those Yogi Sips. We're 90,000 up. That's good. But after the first week, the team in the first position had more than 1,000 votes. So we realized we had to do something else. So what we started doing was we got the team together, and luckily Media Village at that time had a big, because they used to be in an old hotel, so they had a big kind of walk-in fridge. So on Saturdays, we'd go around to different shops and buy Yogi Sips. But now, I'm not talking because they're yogurt drinks, they go off. So you can't keep them for long.
Sure.
A Pick and Pay may have 50, 60, the car may have 40, so the macro would have 200. So you just go to the shop with your trolley or your cart, push it there, and just load it up. I mean, these tellers' eyes were like, "What's wrong with these people?" And then basically, we'd go to churches and say, "Look, ask for the pastor for 3 minutes. Say human trafficking is an issue. What can you do?" Show them the commercial. Say, "Buy a Yogi Sip and vote for this commercial." But then what we realized was people weren't voting because it's complicated. So then what we started doing was cutting open the labels, writing down all the codes, repackaging them. And then on Sundays, just going to churches, doing the same thing and selling the Yogi Sips. So we ended up doing this for 6 months, 6 months. And at the end, we sold 11,000 Yogi Sips. So even if I smell a Yogi Sip now, I'm like, I will never drink Yogi Sip.
I understand.
And from that, we won that competition. We won the 100,000 Rand. That went into this public service announcement. Sure. And then from there, that kind of just moved into something else and something else and something else, and kind of just grew from there. But it all started when people come and ask me now, "Oh, well, I want to make movies. What do I do?" And I used to get annoyed when people go, "Oh, director's advice, well, just do it." But I'm like, genuinely, the best advice is just do it. People go, "Well, I don't have," and I'm like, I understand that I do. I came from a privileged position in that I was in a production house. My parents owned a production company, but still, what I had in my hand, was a yogurt drink, which cost 6 Rand, I think at the time, 6 Rand 50. It went from that to making a commercial with 100,000 Rand, which kind of launched my career.
Sure.
So what do you have in your hand and how do you use it? For me, that was launching a career as a filmmaker, but
sure.
in whatever field you're in. Just
sure.
We kind of have those basic things. So when guys come to me and say, you know, I want to make films, I'm like, I started with the Yogi set, but I only have a cell phone. Perfect. When I started out, I don't think the phones even really had cameras. If they did, their phones were far too expensive. Now even a 500 Rand phone has a great camera where you could film stuff on it. So to just tell stories.
Sure, it's amazing how, but you've also done work you've also worked for other labs, right?
Yes.
Yeah. When was that?
So our labs are reconstructed living labs.
Yeah.
They it's an amazing kind of organization. They're based in Bridgetown on the Cape Flats and do a lot of work with digital literacy and training in that space.
Yeah.
And I was working, actually doing media for, after doing that PSA, I'd gone over to the States and was working with a nonprofit there, doing their media for them. And I was in San Francisco. And this organization, Not for Sale, were having an event at Facebook Causes offices in downtown San Francisco. This amazing view of a kind of San Francisco. And it just so happened someone I knew someone, and Marlon was in San Francisco for meetings. And Marlon is the founder of R Labs.
Oh, by the way.
So I reached out to him and said, hey, we're having this. Yes.
I was saying that, by the way, we're going to be having Marlon on the Real Dialogue at the end of the month. 2 weeks from now, we're going to be having, Marlon Park.
Well,
yeah, sure.
When he's done, you should ask him about optical films, because it's me, Bianca, and Marlon are the shareholders of the company.
Oh, really? I will definitely do that. Yeah.
So someone said, oh, you should meet this guy Marlon, and so I invited him, and he came, and I think we went to like a restaurant afterwards and just chatted till like 11, 12 o'clock. And I remember going home that night and crying and being like, I'm going to work for that guy one day. Like, it was just a hard. Came back and worked for a little bit, did the Another Side of Life. And then it kind of just came about an opportunity. I went to him and said, hey, we have this idea, and we launched a company together which distributed videos to low-end mobile phones. So we're talking like what were at that stage called dumb phones.
Yes.
But basically phones which ran Mixit. I don't know if you remember Mixit. You know,
yes, I remember, yes. Yeah, I remember that.
So we used Mixit as a platform, and we took clips, kind of almost what TikTok is doing now. So now I'm like, oh man, we're just ahead of our time.
You know?
Yeah. But we basically distributed films, short films, feature films, basically video content to these guys on low-end mobile phones, and a clip not exceeding 3 megabytes. We set up this platform on Mixit, and we had 500,000 users. And then we sold that to another company.
I remember.
And that has since folded, because, you know, who can compete against Netflix? No one.
Sure.
But so kind of that was kind of my journey. And then I worked at the incubator for a year, helping some of their projects in their business incubator. And then now me and Marlon actually just had coffee yesterday, and he's our business partner. So he's definitely like kind of one of those solid mentors who's been, been there the last 10 years or so. Yeah. Yeah.
He's an incredible guy, absolutely incredible guy. And I remember the first time I met him, absolutely incredible guy. And like I said, we're going to be having him at I think the week after next, the last week of November. And look, in your work,
R Labs, I could, this whole thing could be, I could just talk about R Labs. So yeah.
I know. Yeah. Look, he's going to have enough time to do that. We're talking about Shane today. And look, you have, I mean, I was going through your awards and recognition, and the short film Freedom Road was screened alongside Kentridge's work at the City Gallery in Wellington, yes. And then you also won Best Narrative at the Pan-African Film Festival in LA. And I mean, you filmed in more than 21 countries. And of course, the attention that your latest documentary, Kusasa, is receiving. We could be, and you are also a Mandela Washington Fellow, and also Mail and Guardian Young 200 South African. Now, these are all special. And of course, there's much more that I would not have mentioned. And
no, I think you mentioned it all.
Which one? all of them are special, but which one? I mean, which one really was special? And talk to me about your experience of the Mandela Washington Fellowship.
Yeah, I'd love to say it would have been the Mail and Guardian top 200, but I didn't think I was going to win, so I didn't even go to the awards ceremony. They invited me. I was like, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to fly to Joburg, but I'm not going to win. And I found out the next day I won. And I did not even get a free subscription to the Mail and Guardian, which I'm super bummed about, because it's like they generally do quite good news. And I'm like, I refuse to pay for the news. I should have. I didn't even get a subscription.
Let's call them tomorrow and make it happen before you go back to the UK.
Yeah,
we can.
Remember me. Give me a free subscription. The Mandela Washington Fellowship was an amazing experience. It basically took 500 of the kind of, they call it best leaders, most inspirational leaders from across Africa, and then placed them in either entrepreneurship, civic leadership, or nonprofits, and divided them up. And then it went to 500 from across Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, went to universities all across the states for basically a 6 weeks, 7 weeks. Sorry, the whole program was 2 months. And then, so I went to the University of Texas in Austin. So I found myself in Texas for 7 weeks. Yeah. I'm glad it was Austin, because I think the rest of Texas I may have had more of a culture clash with, but apparently Austin's, it's definitely more kind of California liberal leaning. And then the last week we went to Washington, D.C., and this was when Obama was still in office, and Obama spoke to the leaders. There was about 20 minutes kind of open, and the press were there, and then they sent the press out, and it was a closed room, and anyone could ask any questions to him. And it was just the most incredible time. And then, so I still haven't watched that hand. It's still...
Hey, please keep it. Please keep it. Oh, I love this. Okay, Zandi says Shane, and then of course Linda. Shane, you are an incredible example of having a vision, passion, and following your dream to impact others through excellent storytelling. You are changing people and impacting them to action. That is so true. Who's Linda?
So my family members, I'm paying them to say good things about me.
No, man, but hey, you've just wasted money, because everything she has said is true. You didn't even need to pay her for that.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's transition a bit. Speaking about your family, and I mean, the African proverb, it takes the village to raise a child. There must have been, people that have impacted and have made a contribution to who Shane is today. This award-winning global change maker must have also been changed and impacted by others. Do you want to take some time and reflect on those people and how did they impact you?
Yeah. I was thinking about this earlier, and saying I can't, some people can point to, there was this one school teacher who impacted me and changed my life because they believed in me, or I don't think I can't necessarily do that. There's not one necessarily specific person who was the person who kind of changed my life. But I can say there's, multiple people who have changed my life in different seasons, for different times, for different reasons. And so it's a lot more kind of compartmentalized than just nailing it sort of down to one person. So I would say, I mean, we spoke about it earlier, but I'd say like my family, my parents, just kind of growing up in an environment which is like this, your worldview needs to be bigger than just this, this little cup, it needs to be here. I remember one stage going to, I was in school and my parents were traveling, they're going to the States, and we had just finished our third term holidays and gone back to school for like 2 days or something. And then my dad wanted to travel to the States, was going to take us out of school and would come back like at the start of the fourth term holiday. So basically I missed the whole last term of school. So kind of, I mean, I wasn't there, but I remember my dad telling the story, went to the principal and said, hey, I want to take my kids, because me and my brother, I think, were in the same school at the time. out of school to do this trip, and the principal said, no, you can't. And so my dad said, well, let me rephrase it. I'm not asking you, I'm telling you, I'm going to take them out of school. Either you give them the work, they can do it, or they're not doing the work.
Sure.
And I think it is kind of this idea, learning this young, that for me, I've learned way better outside the classroom, meeting people, hearing their stories is way more fascinating than reading something in a textbook. And so I think kind of the value of not only storytelling, which I learned from my parents, but the value of like kind of learning other people's stories, and in like kind of putting yourself in other people's cultures, other people's stories. You know, because, and I think it has impacted me a lot, because being in kind of South Africa, I'm, you know, the kind of, I'm not that out. I'm not the other. I'm the in. You know, I'm from a middle class, wealthy family. I'm a white guy. I'm straight. I went to you know, like a, you know, former Model C school. So nothing in my life have I ever been the outsider. And I think kind of traveling, I mean, it doesn't give you at all the same experience, but it makes you can realize sometimes when you go into other cultures and go, okay, this is kind of, I'm not the in person. It doesn't feel the same as living in a culture where that's not the same, not at all, and that's what I'm saying. But it can give you an insight to be like, oh, even in a minute little way, I don't like this feeling. So how do I be that person when I'm in my own, you know, culture, my own society, my own circles, who brings people into the circles, and makes my circle look diverse and different rather than just look like me. So I think. That's kind of a lot I learned. And then also probably growing up, also obviously from my parents, but then also them being in YWAM and, you know, doing, you know, DTS when I finished school. And I think that kind of definitely kind of shaped the way I saw the world. You know, these amazing people from all around the world you're getting to meet and talk to and hear their stories, which is incredible. So I think definitely YWAM. And then I suppose there's different people throughout, but I suppose the kind of the one, which I mean, kind of bizarrely, because I didn't even know, I suppose would be Marlon, would kind of be one of those kind of mentor figures. And so there's different people, and his would be kind of showing you like, how do you kind of make a different, like a practical difference in people's lives. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of been the village. And now even as we grow, and me and Bianca have now moved, obviously, as we said, to the UK, and there it'll be like, cool, how do we now, what's our village here? And who do we learn from here? And how, you know, and what do we take from here? And then as we move from there, we don't know where the road's going to take us, but hopefully end up somewhere else. We're like, cool, what is our village going to look like here? And who do we learn from?
I mean, it's amazing how, I mean, you've just mentioned YMM and the DT. What's the format? Yes.
Training school.
Yes, the training school. Here's the amazing thing. After I became friends with your parents, they introduced me to an incredible couple, the Bowers, and so I had the privilege of being invited to go. I think it was a week or two, and be one of the teachers there. I think I was on social change leadership, and it just shows you that the world can really be a small place, and it's so beautiful when you get to breathe the same air with the people that have and share the same aspirations and values as you do, and that's what your home and always represents for me. I would rather stay at your house than stay at a 5-star hotel.
Let's clarify my parents' house.
Yes, of course. I mean, your parents' house. I mean, you're in the UK, man.
Yeah.
And
come stay with me, but if you stay with me in the UK, I'm sure you'd rather go. I'd rather be staying in a
no. I prefer to stay with your folks. Yeah. I'm older. I told you I'm turning 40 next year. I can't be around younger folks. And okay, now let's go to look. I don't normally ask this, but I feel comfortable asking this to you in particular because you've kind of alluded to it and implied it. How have you made sense of your white privilege and what it brings, and how important has it been? I mean, I personally believe that privilege is morally neutral. There's nothing wrong with being privileged, and it gets even better when you share it, because when you share it, then it stops becoming a privilege, and whatever that makes you, privileged. But how have you dealt with the white privilege? Of course, there are many people that would even argue that I'm normal, we are all equal, but you are very clear. Exactly. I mean, you are very clear that there are doors that are open to you simply because of the color of your skin and where you come from. And talk to me about and reflect with me on that, please, Shane.
Yeah, I think. I mean, and this actually ties in quite nicely with kind of the previous thing. And I suppose one of the other areas which I say kind of had a big sort of impact on my journey was, and we spoke about at the beginning, was the warehouse and all the Justice Conference, in kind of that thinking. And how do because I kind of felt this something uneasy in my spirit, but church wasn't speaking about it. And I didn't have friends who were actively engaging in it. At least they were, but it wasn't popular conversation, And so I think being involved in the Justice Conference and the warehouse and those circles and those thinking kind of helped me unlock a little bit of like my thinking towards these. So I definitely put them in kind of that circle of the village, which has helped train my thinking.
Definitely.
But I think it is important for me to acknowledge that, and I'll say even specifically more important in the role that I hold, being a filmmaker. And some people say, well, as a white person, there's certain stories you shouldn't tell. And I would say, I wouldn't say there's any stories you can say to someone you can't tell that story, Or so people say you can't tell that story, and I wouldn't say to anyone you can't tell that story, because I'd say, well, then you're kind of blocking the kind of freedom of speech, right?
Sure.
But I would say, are there certain stories I shouldn't tell? Or are there stories that other people who have a lived experience are better at telling that story? And how do I sort of partner with them?
Sure.
And so I think acknowledging that and not going, well, I'm good at what I do, so I can tell any story in South Africa, no matter whose story I will tell it. Because I think you start losing amazing voices, amazing insights, and it's just a shame. So I think, for example, with my latest film, where we did it was on gender-based violence.
Yeah, we're dying here.
Hashtag we are dying here. And I'm sure when I mention it, people go like, do we really need another film on gender-based violence made by a white male? Or made by a male. And I think for me, this project was so special and close to my heart because it was originally a stage production, directed and written by, the amazing Sipokazi Jonas. And then we worked with her into making it a film production. But what I say to people is, when you watch it, it's an incredible piece. But my role in that was taking my skills that I have into taking something on a page and making it look good on screen, and all of that in partnership with Sipokazi. But there were Sipokazi's words, there were her lived experience, there were her poems, and so kind of this coming together of saying, like, what is your experience, and how do I bring your experience and my privilege side by side, and how do they complement each other? And I've been struggling, like, how do you do that, especially as a storyteller, where it is, I would say, probably impossible to take your voice out. And and this was just an amazing experience of feeling like, what does that look like when you come together with someone who is a great story, who wants to tell their story. And I got the skills to help, but you tell your story. I'm just going to
amplify your voice.
All the levels that I can to amplify it. And so when I say it's amazing, I go, wow, it's weird he's saying his work's amazing. I'm saying Sipokazi's work is amazing. And I had the privilege to work with her to bring it out. Yeah, I think it is. It is something that I have to work with every day. And what is my privilege look like? Even going into a shop, and getting frustrated because the teller's slow, or getting stuck in traffic and realizing, oh, I'm in traffic, and then be like, well, at least I have the privilege of driving a car. So there's these things which when you engage with it, on a helpful level, it can be very helpful. At least to me. But I think to anyone who's genuine and actually wants to engage with it, it changes the way they relate to the world. It changes the way they relate and see other people, which can only be a good thing.
Yeah. No, definitely. And look, Valerie says, Kusasa is our mutual friend, you and I, and an incredible human being. And here's the crazy thing. Okay, you met her at the Justice Conference. Of course, I knew her way before then. We go to the same church, but she's absolutely an incredible poet, gifted with her words. And Valerie, we will definitely be having Kusasa on the show. I promise you, we'll definitely be having her. And I'm going to let her know that you want her here.
And as I was talking to just before, literally just before I came out, I was like, here's the link. And because we're chatting about another project that we're working on, not this one, another. Because now, like, we're working on everything we can together. And she's actually busy, so she's not watching, but she wanted to be recorded so that she could watch it.
Sure.
And so she would be on the show soon. But she also speaks super highly of you. She's like, man, I can't make it. So
she's an incredible human being, absolutely incredible human being. Anna Jafta says, we need more of Shanes who celebrate diversity. And all right, Shane, we're going to go and touch other questions and comments later. I don't know where time went. It's going so fast. But hey, we are in Africa. We normally say they're in the West, they've got the clock, we've got the time. And so, but of course, we're pushing for that for the next 20 minutes or so. Now, let's transition into, for a 31-year-old that has done the work that you have done, the truth is you are a success. You are a success. And look, personally, I believe that success is a personal construct, and that success should not be so much defined, and it is not and should not be defined so much by where one is, but what one has had to overcome to be where they are. Now, let me tell you something as a Black man. It is difficult to overcome poverty and inequality and all the things that you are born into, especially my generation back then, and even those that came after me. But I also take my hat off white people who have consistently and deliberately sought to overcome the trappings of racism, the trappings of privilege. People who have sought to discover the world outside of those limitations. And you are one of those, Shane. And for that, I really celebrate you. And I celebrate your parents as well for that, to realize that there is a world outside those that look like us. There is a world outside those that speak like us. There is a world outside those that have grown up where we've grown up. But to deliberately, because here's the thing. For me, to overcome the trappings of my childhood was a matter of survival. I needed to go to school. I needed to get that tertiary education. I needed to make it. It's a matter of survival. But people who are born into privilege do not need that. They can survive without the external world. But for them to make themselves uncomfortable and seek to learn other people's cultures and worldviews, that is something to be admired. And I'm saying that to you and your family, of course, but to you, Shane, in particular. I admire that about you. And for me, that makes you a tremendous success.
Thank you.
No,
well, so before I speak about the success thing, I'd like to say that for me, it's always when anyone kind of praises me or my work, I'm always like, I feel awkward because, and I think it's not spoken about enough, especially in kind of creative circles, but I suppose in any high performing circles. And I think it needs to be spoken about more. And it's this idea of imposter syndrome. And I struggle with it big time. So I'm like, hey, eventually I'm going to be found out. I've done this last piece, but now the stress, I've got to do a better piece. Or when you say, oh, you've done all this work, I look at myself and go, yeah, but I know as a white privileged male, I've got so much more work to do. Wait till they find out. And I think many high performing people, I think statistically most high performing people struggle with this. I found when I did the Mandela Washington Fellowship, actually the night before I was doing my application, I forgot about it, and Bianca was like, "Are you applying to that thing?" And I was like, oh, "I should. I think it's just one question." Turns out there was a lot of questions. So I was sitting around the dining room table. I was like, "Mom, you can write this, and B, you write that essay, and I'll write this essay," and we're kind of but the whole thing is like, I don't deserve to be here. And then you get there, and everyone says like, I don't deserve to be here. And it's the same with Bianca now at Said. You're like, and B was like, how did I get in? They made a mistake. The person was sleeping. I slipped through the cracks. And you're so intimidated. And then you go to start meeting the other people in the Said Business School. And they were like, or even at Oxford in general, they're like, I don't know how I got here. I'm going to get found out. And I think the idea, it's when people acknowledge it, like, we don't deserve to be there. In a sense, it was maybe luck, maybe timing. There was hard work, but also, so yeah, I think that's kind of, so I always feel, because I'm like, they praising me now, but just wait till they find out about this, and yeah. But I think to the success thing, I was talking the other day and saying, like, how will I measure a successful life? And I think success for me is living a life that allows others to simply dream. And for me, it's like when because I was kind of brainstorming, what does it mean? And then I came on that, I was like, that's it. Because
I love that. I absolutely love that.
Thank you. Yeah, and for me, when it clicked, I was like, that's success for me. Because, you know, if we take this analogy of, you know, a garden, you know, someone's not going to plant a garden to eat from that garden if they don't have hope that tomorrow's going to be better.
Sure.
Because the garden, there's time, you know. Someone's not going to paint a house that they don't own.
Sure.
You know. So if someone does not have hope that tomorrow's going to be better than today, and someone can't look at you and say, because of that person, I have hope that tomorrow's going to be better. What's the point? So for me, if I can do that, amongst many other things, but I think kind of on an intellectual level, it can kind of all fit under this idea of dreaming. That if I live a life that allows others to simply dream that their lives can be better, I would say that's kind of been successful.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that. I absolutely, and it, when you embrace that mentality and you start to care less about what people think and say about you, but you start to care more about how you make them feel about themselves. Because it is because it is that really changes the world, how you make people feel about themselves. I absolutely love that. And Thora Mansfield, well done, Shane. And then another chapter, beautiful definition of success. Who was that?
Another family member. Thanks, Grant.
Okay, all right. Beautiful.
A lot of money. Sure, I never thought about
like I said, you've just wasted that money, my friend. You've just wasted that money.
Going back to if we talk about success and we speak about success kind of versus significance, for me, then I would say what defines significance? I would say significance for me is that impact part.
Sure.
So I can be successful without having significance. I don't think you're going to be significant without having success. And for me, and that's why this whole idea of having impact on my work, impact on my life, impact on my relationships, that significance equals, impact. And that's how kind of I would sort of find those.
Sure. Now, okay, let's transition again. Africa. Now, let me just share an observation, and I didn't warn you about this. Many of my white friends, a good number of them, they love being South African, and they love identifying with South Africa, with South Africa. But some of them do not necessarily share the same affinity with the rest of the continent. It's as if South Africa is outside of Africa, and but this platform is, one of the missions of the Real Village is to reconstruct and empower Africa. While we are stationed in South Africa, but the outlook is Pan-African, because we realize that South Africa's success is intricately linked and tied up to the rest of the continent's success. We can't be successful, and we can't have a thriving democracy in an Africa that does not strive for the same. And so I'm going to be asking you not necessarily so much about South Africa, but about Africa. What is your dream Africa? How does it look like? What is the Africa that you hope your children and great children get to inherit? What is the Africa that you wish we would live in? How does it look like? And what do you think stands between us and that Africa being realized?
I think if we look at Africa now, there's so many issues that we can obviously point, and everyone knows, and a lot of them are systemic or massive issues, and so we don't want to tackle them. But I think, I think in Hamilton and Lin-Manuel Miranda they spoke about a legacy. What is a legacy? And it's planting seeds in a garden you never get to see. And I could never do that justice, because it's a great musical. But it's that, I think it's kind of having to have that mindset, as we spoke earlier about this kind of analogy of a garden, is what are the things we want to change in Africa? And instead of going too big, I can't make a difference, I can't change it in my lifetime, be intentional about kind of putting things in place to start changing.
Yeah.
I've limited travel across Africa, but it's to go from Ghana to Nigeria, which are relatively close, and it couldn't be more different. And then you come to Rwanda, couldn't be more different. So it's so varied. So even this idea of what does Africa look like, I don't think we can say what Africa looks like, because I don't think Africa looks like one specific thing. I think Africa looks like 53. How many countries are there? 54. Could be completely wrong. Countries. 53. Yes, 53 countries. 2,000. 2,000 plus different languages. That's kind of what Africa looks like. So how do we accept it and take it for what is it in all its diversity and all that glory? How do we start finding common ground between all of that and bring it to the table and say, this is the richness of Africa, not that we are uniform, but that we're different. And then we can start getting into the nuts and bolts and saying, what are the things? And I think the things are obvious, but I think in most places, but a lot of it just, I would say, comes down to leadership. That we need leaders with kind of a new vision for what their country could be, for what their kind of trans-border relations could be. We need a vision for continental travel. When people travel, especially majority privileged people, where they're going to America, they're going to Europe. Like, why? You got one of the most beautiful places on the earth, beautiful continent on the earth. Like, is that right here? So I think, but I would say the big thing is leadership and getting the right leaders in the right place at the right time. And I think that's really tough. Because in a lot of countries, a lot of places, there's systems in place which don't allow necessarily the best leaders to rise up. And then again, even speaking from my position of privilege, well, what does the best leader look like? Do they speak my language? Do they have my kind of education? I think it's going to be very kind of regional. But I think it definitely comes down to needing kind of strong leaders.
Sure. Thanks, Shane. And by the way, I've just Googled it. It's 54.
54.
Yes, you're right. I was wrong. So much for a Pan-Africanist. And I know. Look, we will definitely be touching on. I mean, you touched the whole issue of legacy. Let me ask you, how would you want to be remembered, Shane Vermooten? I'm never sure how to pronounce your surname. I pronounce it this way when I speak with you and the other way when I speak with your dad. But
pronounce it the way you speak to my dad, because I'm not even sure how you pronounce my surname.
Sure.
Because I don't know how to, yeah, however you want to say it. I'm still not good.
Yeah, let's talk about your legacy.
Yeah, legacy. Yeah, I think I'd want to be remembered for the stories I told and how I told those stories. I think the amazing thing, and it's an honor, is that being a storyteller, you know, in whatever form that is, you inherently are, in everything you're doing, you're leaving a legacy. And I think that sometimes is in my mind when you're filming, you know, if you're doing another job, you know, you're a banker or a consultant or I mean, whatever job is out there, I'm not knocking those jobs, but inherently most jobs are you're doing something so that you can get money so that you can live. Right. And then maybe, and you're leaving, you know, maybe a financial legacy in terms of to your kids, but no one's ever going to go back and say, remember on that day when he that 100,000 rand check or whatever. So the very nature of being a storyteller, whether that's a, you know, novelist or a filmmaker or a podcaster, whatever, is this real dialogue that we're doing now, like, is going to be Monday the 16th of November, 2020 forever.
Sure.
Will be online.
Sure.
And that's kind of part of legacy. So even when I'm making films and filming a shot, I go, wow, that's a great shot. And then when I choose that in the edit and now my project's released, I'm like, that shot selection, that acting, that all of that is part of what I'm going to be. Long after I'm gone, my films will still be here.
Sure.
This dialogue will still be here. And
Sure.
I think it kind of means inherently in that everything you're doing, you're actually creating a legacy. But it also puts more pressure sometimes on everything you're doing, because you're like, this is going to be around. So I get sometimes nervous when I'm doing talks. I'm like, what if I say the wrong thing? Or I say something and I'm going to be remembered by that. And and it's not actually what I think or what I mean. But that's part of now what your legacy is. So I think I would want to be told as a storyteller, an orator who told Africa stories in a way that Africa was proud of.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm going to have to quote you on that one. I love that. I absolutely, that just resonated with me. That just hit me to tell African stories in a way that Africa was proud of. All right, Shane. Okay, before I get all worked up, let's just quickly go through some messages that we have here. Okay, Valerie is asking again, what are you, I think you've answered that, but you can look into it again. What are you working on nowadays, Shane?
Nowadays, like, so there's that film, We Are Dying Here, hashtag We Are Dying Here. So it'll be, part of that is releasing that, doing the festival run, getting it distributed, getting it seen. So that's, just finished that, and then kind of working on one or two small projects before the rest of the year.
Sure.
The kind of main push at the moment is our production company, Optical, and basically finding stories, long form stories that drive impact. The impact is not second to the message. The message is not second to the impact, but they both go hand in hand. We want to just tell great stories. So I think driving that, finding more clients, which is a difficult thing now because you know, really spending money. But then also in January, or January, February, I may come back to South Africa. There's a big movie which an American director is coming down for, and our company's just, and another company, Trilogy, are just servicing that job. So basically, we just make sure everything's in place and ready for them when they get here. Get the cast, the crew. So that's kind of the things I'm working on. Otherwise, trying to work on my tan in the UK, but that's not going so well.
Good luck with that one. And then
this is, sorry, I'll be get to that. It's okay. The nature of our industry is like you've done something, and then the question, okay, what's next? And you have an answer for that. And sometimes I'm a bit slow with that, but it is it kind of just never stops. You do one thing, cool. What's next? What's next? What's next? We also do have a featured like a TV series, which we're hoping to pitch to a bunch of networks soon. We had written it as a kind of generic international TV series, and we kind of just rewrote it to kind of look at the class and kind of systems in Cape Town. But it again, it follows similarly the idea of bypass, in that this guy sets up a legal organ clinic to give the working class money, but to save the rich. And so it looks at all the ethics of that, set in a context of Cape Town and everything that comes with that. So that's we got the pilot script, and that's a 45-minute pilot. And then we're in the process. If someone picks that up, then we'll write the entire series out.
Awesome. Thanks, man. I'm looking forward to that. Keep us posted. And then, of course, Thembinkosi Madika's virtual reality seems to be a future of filmmaking. How does VR change the face of the film industry?
I'd say I don't know. I think VR is going to be a tool. I think I don't think it's going to be the future. I think if there is going to be, there's lots of kinks to work out, because you can get motion sick, and there's lots of kinks to be sorted out. It's great, and I've watched some great VR movies and VR experiences, but it's a different experience. It's a different way of telling of making movies, because in a VR experience, if I'm directing something, I'm like, I want the audience to focus on like that computer screen there. I want them to do this, and wherever I've sort of point the camera, that's where they're going to look. That's what they're going to process. When in VR, they could just turn their head. They can look everywhere. So you all of a sudden lose a lot of that control, which is great for the audience, more difficult for the filmmaker. But I just think it's one tool, and I don't think it's going to overtake filmmaking as a whole. I think it'll be a fun space to play in, and I think it's going to get a lot bigger over the next few years. But same as 3D, everyone was like 3D is going to kill 2D films, and it hasn't. It's great, and we enjoy 3D films, and obviously cinemas enjoy it, and so do studios, because they can charge you more. So yeah, I'm not sure it's the future, but I do enjoy it, and I haven't worked in a VR project yet, but hopefully sometime.
Sure. Okay, Zandi says success through Shane's lens looks great. The impact and success narration, very interesting. And Lynette, that's brilliant, Shane. All right, let's wrap it up. The last fives with your favorite. You know that. Your favorite African destination. Let's start with that.
It will be a toss-up. I would say it would be between Ghana and Rwanda. So I don't know. They're different, but yeah, I love them both.
Sure.
Yeah. Choose one to go with two. I'm breaking the rules here.
No, it's okay, man. They are meant to be broken sometimes. And secondly, your favorite dish, meal, doesn't have to be African.
I would say my favorite dish would be taco salad, which is very bizarre because I'm not a massive salad person, but it's like kind of Mexican food, kind of. Not really. I don't know how to describe it. It makes me feel healthy when I say it's taco salad, because it's
sure.
Like, whoa, it's very more of a salad.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that Dai was probably smiling and very proud that your favorite dish is a salad. And,
no, it's not that kind of salad.
No. And then your favorite book, if there is such, and one of those books that have impacted you.
Yeah, I would say for me, any book, sort of any biography. I love reading biographies. So I'd say maybe Elon Musk's biography or Steve Jobs. And the similarities in those were striking for me. Just like reading about people who succeed at that level. It's just fascinating with all their flaws and successes. What does that look like? But I'm very excited for Barack Obama's new book.
Out
today, I think, or was it out on Friday? I promise that. So we'll probably have to
I've been reading reviews about it as well. Yeah. Are you a physical book reader, a Kindle reader, audiobook, or all of them?
No, if I'm going to read a book, it's got to be physical. Otherwise, I'll just get distracted with all the other shiny things that you can do on the iPad or computer screen. I'm like, ooh, a pop-up. What's that? And then
I know. And then you get, I know. But I've been enjoying audiobooks. I really have. I really have. And especially biographies. Yeah.
Yeah. No, the problem I also love audiobooks, but I'll be driving and something would happen in this the audiobook and be like, oh, that's amazing. But I'm driving. I get home. I'm like, Pete, this is amazing thing this guy said. What was it?
Yeah, because they continue speaking. Yeah, I know.
Because I'm not because my mind's in two places. Then I'm like, there was this thing he said, and I can't. And I'm like, if I can't remember an hour later, it's probably going in this ear, out that way. But I feel like I like to do it. I like to feel smart when I'm driving and I listen to audiobooks.
I know what you mean. You know what I enjoy them about, and is that you can read and then you can return, and then what they do for me, they inform the kind of books I should permanently invest on.
Yeah.
So I would just listen. Like I think I can buy the physical book, and even better maybe a hard copy. And so for me they go together. But I really do enjoy audiobooks at the moment. Okay, but this is not about me. It's about Shane. And look, I don't normally ask this question, but you are in that space. 2 favorite movies of all time?
Sure.
I figured.
Of all time.
All right. Okay. Just movies that just come to mind. I mean, I know a couple of movies that just do it for me. A Beautiful Mind, incredible movie. Men of Honor.
Yeah.
But hey.
Beautiful Mind. Great. I mean, if you're going right back, I mean, under lockdown, me and B kind of did a reboot of all the old classics. I'd say maybe Casablanca is one of the
Sure.
There's Marilyn Monroe one, Too Hot to Handle. The name sounds very risque, but it's not at all. It's really coming closer. I would maybe say 1917. I really enjoyed.
I haven't watched. I didn't watch. Yeah.
You haven't seen it, no. So yeah, I always hate getting put on the spot. There's just so many.
Sure. I didn't warn you about it, but I like I said, I have not asked this question to anyone before. But since you are in the space, I just thought let me just ask you that. And your favorite song?
My favorite song. I would say at the moment, I kind of go through things. My favorite kind of album would be the Hamilton soundtrack. Is just on repeat in our house. We just listen to the Hamilton soundtrack like over and over. We love the Hamilton soundtrack, or really any musical theater soundtrack. Which is like, so it's you can relive that experience of being in the theater over and over and over again without not actually being in the theater. So we me and B just love musical theater. So any musical theater soundtrack is right up our alley. But right now it's Hamilton. And I think we've worn that, that iTunes playlist out.
Sure. Yeah. And look who's just joined us. Okay, look, of course she's watching. We knew that she is. Hello, B. Only B.
Only B's taco salad.
Yeah, sound like it. Okay. And of course, Anita Jafta commenting on my favorite movie one of my favorite movies of all time, Beautiful Mind. It's a classic, indeed. And your favorite quote?
My favorite quote, I would maybe say it's the long one, the Theodore Roosevelt. It's not the critic who counts, because literally in our industry we have critics who literally just criticize. And then you have people who aren't critics, but they just like everyone's an expert, films. And so everyone kind of wants to give their opinion and tell you what they like and don't like, and it can be disheartening sometimes. So I think. It's not the critic who counts is probably my favorite kind of quote.
I absolutely understand. And hey, Shane, we've come to the end of this conversation. And once again, thank you so much for taking the time to honor us with your presence, number one. And number two, I meant what I said earlier on about your posture towards going out of your comfort zone and in trying to make this world a better place. And I can tell you that those that know you have been enriched by the experience, and that this world and Africa is a better place because you are here. I'm so proud to know you, man. All the best. May God bless all your endeavors, and all the best to be with the MBA. And we can't wait to have you guys back.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been an honor to be on your show. Really appreciate it. And I must say, this show is maybe poorer because I've had to pay so many people to say good things. So thanks for having me, and I was made poor by being on the show. So
yeah, no, thanks, man. I really appreciate you having you here. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. I hope and I pray that you enjoyed this conversation. I know that I was quite challenged. I remember when he says that I want to tell African stories in a way that Africa will be proud. That just resonated with me. And we wish you all the best for this week. And we will see you next week. We have another young continent change maker, Uzanele Hlachwayo. Incredible. Go Google her. Strangely enough, she works for Google, and she does incredible work, a marathon runner as well. And you'll definitely enjoy this. Now I gotta bring you back, Shane. I've got to bring you back while we read this one from Craig Stewart.
Craig, that's right back to the beginning.
Yeah, I just had to bring you back. You were supposed to have gone. Thanks, Craig. You're an incredible guy. And you actually made it possible for me and Shane to meet through that incredible idea of the Justice Conference. And guys, all the best. We'll see you next week. And in the words of that great African, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe, remember, Africa, may God bless you.